And good morning, everyone. Welcoming you to another edition of Game Time with Kenny. Yes, Game Time with Kenny is back in the house and we are ready to rock and roll. Well, today let's talk about last night's Western Conference Final, Game 2 in Oakland at the Oracle Arena in Oakland, California. As a reminder, this is the last season that the Golden State Warriors will be in Oakland. Next season, they will travel across the bay in San Francisco, and there they will have their 2019-2020 NBA regular season games will start place in San Francisco. All right, so what we want to do is we want to go through the highlights of yesterday's action, and Golden State gets a late bucket by Draymond Green as Steph Curry feeds him for a late layup in that game. And the Golden State Warriors beat the Portland Trailblazers 114-111. So they are up 2-0, and they will have 2 in Portland, Oregon. Well, I'll tell you what, Portland, Seth Curry came out to play. He actually played better than his brother Steph Curry yesterday. But in game 1, it was just the opposite. Steph Curry got the better hand of Seth Curry, as in game 1, he had 36 points. He hit 9 3-pointers. 27 of his 36 comes in game number 1. And that was even better than game 6 in Houston, where the Houston Rockets allowed Steph Curry to get 23 of his 33 points in that game in the third quarter. That was just amazing display by Steph Curry. And then Steph Curry in game 1, he wanted to show the world that he's still a top player to be reckoned with. Even though he was pretty much held in check against the Houston Rockets, but when it counted the most, you know that Steph Curry comes through. And in game 1, he proved that. And the Golden State Warriors beat the Portland Trailblazers 116-94 in game 1. They get 114 in game 2. They give up 111 in game 2. But the Warriors, they take care of business at home. It doesn't matter how you win in the playoffs, as long as you get a win and you protect home court, that is the main thing. And that is exactly what happened last night in Oakland. All right, so we want to go ahead and I want to show you the video of yesterday's action where Steph Curry goes to pass to Draymond Green for the late layup. And that was just incredible at what took place in that display over there. So that'll load up in a moment. But let's go to the Eastern Conference before we get there. Kawhi Leonard. Yes, he led all scores in game 1. But they still lost. They had a double-digit lead. Okay, let's go to the action. All right, so that is what happened in yesterday's game, where Steph Curry gets the late pass by Draymond Green. And as you can see, the defense that Portland had, you cannot leave Draymond Green open that late in a game. With you being down 1, you have to put a body on him. They did not. They let him get by him, and he was able to get the layup without being contested. And that is the difference in the game. And Portland was not able to answer with a 3-pointer at the other end. So the Trailblazers go back home down 114-111. All right, so let's talk again about the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference Finals are in Milwaukee tonight, where Game 2 will take place between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors. Now, Kawhi Leonard came out and he played fairly well. He played a great game. Giannis, though, his team was the better one when it came to the end. Even though the Bucks were down by double digits, they somehow pulled away in the second half and got a late surge to beat the Toronto Raptors. What does Toronto have to do to get the split now and then go back home being 1-1 and having a chance to get 2 victories in Toronto? Well, they got to get the victory tonight. There is no doubt. This is a must-win game. This is a desperation game for Toronto. They cannot afford to go down 0-2 at home to try to beat the Milwaukee Bucks twice with them being down 2-0. That is just not going to happen in this series. If Milwaukee wins tonight, it's going to be difficult for Toronto to try to come back and win this series. Now, I'm not saying it's highly impossible, but it's going to be much more difficult, tall order, and task to try to win against the number 1 team in the league this season, the Milwaukee Bucks. 82 regular season games. They have 60 victories and 22 losses. They were tremendous on defense this year, and the defense came up in the second half of that game, and they started to pull away. Well, that's what the Bucks are going to have to do for the entire 48 minutes is play solid defense. But that's what Toronto has to do, and they have to do better when protecting a double-digit lead. They cannot let the runs that Milwaukee had to cut into the lead and then eventually take the lead and eventually win the game. So if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you come out, you play the intensity like you did in the second half, you start pulling away, and you get better defense. And just really pressure the Toronto Raptors. Get the loose balls, get the offensive rebounds, get the defensive rebounds, control the glass. That's what Milwaukee has to do. What do you do if you're Toronto? Well, you also have to play good defense. You have to be scrappy. You have to really want it. And that's what you got to do in tonight's game if you're going to go ahead and get a victory and get a 1-1 series tie going back home. The other thing they have to do that the Celtics did not do in games 2 through 5, but they did in game 1, and that is control Giannis. Not let him dictate the game to you, but you dictate it to him. And don't let him be able to penetrate to the paint and get those easy layups and everything right there. Can't let that happen. Well, that's what Toronto did. They couldn't control him. The Celtics couldn't do it. So now the Toronto Raptors are faced with a tall task order to try to win game 2 and then to try to win 4 straight against them. Well, Milwaukee, after being down 1-0 against Boston, they won 4 straight. But what about the Toronto Raptors? Can they win 4 straight against Milwaukee? And then go to the NBA Finals to possibly play against the Golden State Warriors. Now, as I mentioned before, the only team I believe that's going to stand in the way of the Golden State Warriors winning their 4th NBA title in 5 years is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. No Western Conference team that is in the playoffs that still remains or that has been in this year's playoffs, I believe has the capability of winning 4 games out of 7 against the Golden State Warriors. It's just not feasible. And I don't believe for a minute that it's going to happen. I believe the Golden State Warriors are going to take care of business. They know that Portland is in a desperate game to win game 3, to be, instead of being down 0-3, to be down 1-2. You'd rather be down 2-1 than be down 3-0 and having to try to find a way to win 4 straight. It's going to be a tall order, but they have to get it done if you're the Portland Trailblazers. If you're the Golden State Warriors, on the other hand, you cannot have a lapse like you did in the 2016 NBA Finals when you went for game 3 in Cleveland. I believe the Warriors had the mentality saying, oh, you know what? We're going to take this game. And we believe it's going to be an easy game. When we go to the Quicken Loans Arena, they're in Cleveland. But what they found out was it wasn't that easy. And ever since that game, the series changed. And the Cavaliers ended up winning the NBA Finals in 2016. That is the only year out of the past 4 years that the Golden State Warriors have been in the NBA Finals that they lost to. They've won 3 of the last 4. They want to make it 4 of the last 5. Will the Milwaukee Bucks be the one that will prevent them from winning their 4th title in 5 years? Or will the Warriors be able to go into Milwaukee if the two play each other, because they know that the first 2 is in Milwaukee? They know that game 7, if it has to go that far, is in Milwaukee. The Warriors will not have the luxury of having a game 7 at home. But if the Toronto Raptors do upset the Milwaukee Bucks and the Warriors beat the Portland Trailblazers, the game 7 will be in Oakland, if there is a game 7. But the first 2 would be in Oakland, and Toronto would have to come out west. Let's hope for a great game, and let's hope that the Toronto Raptors can pull off the upset tonight and even the series at 1, going back to Toronto tied up at 1. All right, let's go to the NHL from yesterday. The National Hockey League, we talked about it, and we kind of had a feeling that the Boston Bruins were going to complete a sweep of the Carolina Hurricanes. And matter of fact, that's exactly what they did. They took care of business. They were up 3-0. They wanted to finish off the Carolina Hurricanes and not give them any new life at all. And that's exactly what happened. And we said that Patrice Bergeron had to have a great game. And he did. He scored 2 goals. And they win in 4 games. Yesterday's final was 4-0. They get 2 goals in the second period and 2 goals in the third period. So the goal scorers in yesterday's game was Patrice Bergeron. He had the big night. He had 2 goals in yesterday's game. Brad Marchand had 1 goal. And David Pastrnak had a goal. That's the 4 goals for the Boston Bruins. And they complete the 4-game sweep of the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, as I said, the Carolina Hurricanes opponents that they played against, they played the Washington Capitals first. They went to 7 games. They won an overtime game in Washington to eliminate the Capitals 4-3. So they defeated the Stanley Cup champions. The New York Islanders, who before they played Carolina, they swept the Pittsburgh Penguins in 4 games. They go to Carolina, and Carolina had to go to Uniondale, New York, for the first 2 games on the New York Islanders' home ice. And they take the first 2. The first game, they win 1-0 in overtime. And then they win 2-1. So they go back down into Charlotte for games 3 and 4. Carolina being in an 0-2 hole. The New York Islanders being in an 0-2 hole. So what does Carolina do? They take care of game 3. And then they're feeling good. And then they win game 4 on their home ice in Charlotte in the last round. But in this round, they get the Boston Bruins. So they face a team who swept their own opponent. Then Carolina sweeps the New York Islanders on their home ice in 4 games. But now they get the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins, Carolina had to go up there for the first 2 games. And the Bruins do take games 1 and 2 at home. So Carolina did not get the wins like they did against the New York Islanders on the road in the first 2 games. They get beat. So now they're down 2 games to none going back home for games 3 and 4. So what happens in games 3 and 4? They lose again. So they end up losing 4 games to none. And in yesterday's score, that was exactly what the score was. 4-0. So when you look back, it's like, wow. It's just really amazing to see what took place when Carolina lost these 4 games. Boston really outplayed them. But I'll tell you, the real game that they really had a problem with was when they lost game 1. They really outplayed the Bruins, but then in the third period, the Bruins kind of pulled away from them. And then they just were never the same after they lost the first game. Well, my prediction in the Stanley Cup final this year is the Boston Bruins and the San Jose Sharks. The Bruins are there now. They now await the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues. So if you look at the records that these teams had during the regular season, so let's see where the NHL would have the Stanley Cup final, the first 2 games, if it came down to it. All right, so the Boston Bruins, in 82 games this year, they had 49 victories. The St. Louis Blues, they have 45. And the San Jose Sharks, they have 46. So the Boston Bruins will get the home ice in either San Jose or St. Louis, would travel there once that series gets done. So the Boston Bruins have a lot of days off coming up, depending on how far the San Jose St. Louis series goes. If it goes all 7 games, they're going to get that much more rest before they play their first game in Boston for the Stanley Cup final. So the Bruins have the Stanley Cup final at home, and they can win the first 2 games at home before going on the road. So what do you see happening in the Stanley Cup this year? What's going to happen out west? Would Logan Couture be a factor coming down the stretch? Or is the Blues going to have an answer for him? We'll find out. All right, let's take a look at the baseball scores from yesterday. The Mets and the Nationals. Washington beats the New York Mets 7-6. Dan Jennings gets the win, and Zach Wheeler gets the loss, and Sean Doolittle gets the save for Washington. Milwaukee defeats Philadelphia 11-3. Zach Davies gets the win, and Zach Eflin gets the loss for Philadelphia. Oakland defeats Detroit 17-3. Chris Bassett gets the win, and Spencer Turnbull gets the loss. Texas defeats Kansas City 16-1. Lance Lynn gets the win, and Homer Bailey gets the loss there. Cleveland beats Baltimore 14-7 as A.J. Cole gets the win, and Gabriel Yanoa gets the loss. The Cincinnati Reds beat the Chicago Cubs 4-2. Luis Castillo gets the win. Jose Quintana gets the loss, and Racel Iglesias gets the save for the Cincinnati Reds. Atlanta defeats St. Louis 10-2 as Julio Teheran gets the win and Adam Wainwright gets the loss. The Chicago White Sox beat the Toronto Blue Jays 4-2 as Kelvin Herrera gets the win and Derek Law gets the loss, and Alex Colome for the Chicago White Sox gets the save in that one. And a couple of games in the West Coast in Seattle at Safeco Field. The Twins come in and beat the Mariners 11-6 as Michael Pineda gets the win and Eric Swanson is the losing pitcher for the Seattle Mariners. And San Diego gets the win over Pittsburgh 4-3 as Adam Warren gets the win, Richard Rodriguez gets the loss, and Kirby Yates for the San Diego Padres picks up the save in that one. And so that is the look at around the baseball scoreboard from yesterday. And I want to thank you for watching this edition of Game Time with Kenny. Yes, we want to truly thank you once again for viewing this program and this episode. We do apologize that this day in sports history, information and content we could not upload today, so we could not give you that information. But again, in upcoming programs, we will go back from January 1st all the way up to the end of this year, and we will get you all updated on what happened in each day. But it's going to take a lot of programs because we don't want to do more than 30 minutes in a program. So just bear with us as those episodes will be coming up. And you know, let's watch the games today. You know, the San Jose Sharks still in St. Louis tonight for game number 4, and they will have game number 5 on Sunday out there in San Jose. And the Milwaukee Bucks will also be playing the Toronto Raptors tonight at home, so keep an eye on that game as well. Please, if you could subscribe to this channel and this link, I would truly do appreciate it. I do thank each and every one of us, one of you who are following me on this, and we love your feedback. We love to have you send comments to me, how we can change the program, how we can, improve it and make it a lot better. And as I said before, we want to become more unique than any other sports program that's out there. We want to provide you more information, and we want to do creative ways in order to make it more entertaining for the viewing audience. So once again, I do appreciate it today. Send this link, share this link with your YouTube friends, Facebook, Twitter, any social media sites that you have. Email people, text them, let them know about this program. And please allow them to view this program. And we do appreciate each and every one of you once again. And we thank you all very much today, and you have a great and pleasant day and have a great weekend. Bye for now.